Welcome to the Gap We Live In podcast, where we share life, purpose, and everything in between. Make sure you join the conversation and leave with tools to build bridges instead of burning them. I hope you get the ideas you need to make the gap smaller instead of increasing it. Because remember, whatever it is, you're not stuck, you're just in the gap. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Gap We Live In podcast. I am your host, Gwendolyn Albright, and I am so happy for another episode. Today, we're going to talk about what is real fulfillment and fulfillment in life, fulfillment in careers, fulfillment in relationships, just an overview of what fulfillment is, because that's what we're trying to figure out as we figure out the specific gaps that we might be finding ourselves living in. And when I think about in my own journey, how I found the definition of fulfillment, it was when I was a freshman in college, and I went to a concert, a Jeremy Camp concert. If you don't know him, he's a Christian artist, and he's amazing. So yeah, at the concert, we had a Q&A with him, and he was asking people basically to ask questions. And I, as a little girl, I was like, actually, one of the questions I have is, what would be one advice that you will give to your daughter when she goes to college? Because during the concert, he actually mentioned that he had a daughter, and he was like, "Oh, that's a good question." And he told me the one thing that I would tell my girl is that the true fulfillment in life is in Jesus alone. And that reshaped how I thought about my life. At the time I wanted to study architecture, but the school I went to did not have architecture. And then when I left that concert, I was like, you know what? I actually cannot waste any more time. I need to find architecture, because I felt like that was connected to my fulfillment in Jesus. But it also started that journey of figuring out, what does fulfillment look like? How would I know if I'm not being fulfilled? And some of the research that I actually found out is that a lot of people in this day and age, especially young adults, are not fulfilled. They don't feel fulfilled. 36% of young adults, these are studies that, I found online, that over 36% of young adults say that they are having anxiety. They are 29% report to have depression, which compared to 18% in the last years is a lot. It's a lot. It's continuously increasing. And another survey, in that same survey, actually, it says that 58% of these young adults says that in the past month they felt little to no purpose or meaning in their lives. So we are going through a lot as young adults. We're going through, especially, if you look at what has been happening in the past 5 years, the world just turned upside down, and it continues. So it is very important that we find out that fulfillment is key to feeling in purpose and to live the best life that there could be for you. So that's where I'm going to share a little bit about my story, about how that looked like for me, especially in different transitions that I have been going through in the past 5 years, because I feel like that's when I started realizing my biggest purpose, or what brings fulfillment to me right now, is to help people find the gaps. I want to be that big sister or that friend, that person that helps you realize, oh, I am in the gap here, but it's not to kill me. It's not to, and it might or might not be my fault, but there is hope. There is hope at the end of the tunnel. Not just the tunnel, because the tunnel just sounds like just keep going, it's fine. But I'm here to stress the fact that sometimes being in the gap means there is work you have to do, and that work only you can do it. So, just a little bit about my story. I went to architecture school, the best college, I think, for architecture. Highly recommend Andrews University School of Architecture and Design, Interior Design. And during that time, I always say I didn't know I needed to do architecture, or I wanted to do architecture until I was in architecture school, because that school specifically was very mission oriented. It brought every theory of architecture, every history of architecture to the core of the importance of why we would become architects. So I thought that really spoke to my heart, especially as a Christian and as someone who was really hoping to make an impact in this world. Maybe today, tomorrow, or someday, I really want to be able to look back and say, I think I helped somebody. I think I made one impact. So, yeah. Yes, so I went to architecture school, and I had the opportunity to go on mission trips, which those mission trips opened up my eyes to the need in this world, the desire for more for people, and I was told that architecture can be the solution, and I thought that was very cool. But even that, with not just architecture, but if you're a doctor, if you are a financial analyst, you work with money, you work with students, you work whatever you're working in, really realizing that you could be the solution, and there's gaps where you are is very key. So yeah, just to make the story short, I graduated through the pandemic, and as an immigrant, as an international student, it was hard. It was hard for everybody, but I think, when you are in your last year of college, you're like, I need to get those internships. I need to get my name out there. I need to connect with people. But then I graduated in a season where nobody knew what's gonna happen, and so there was no jobs. They could not hire. They did not hire. I lost my internship, but luckily enough, I got a scholarship that helped me a little bit, like gave me a little bit of more time to do to continue the internship. But during that time, it was like, oh my goodness, like this fulfillment, this impact I want to do in the world. I didn't know what was gonna happen. But I remember just sitting down and praying and saying, at the end of the day, pandemic or not, what I have to bring to the world is still there. And I'm just going to try. I started volunteering. I started just putting myself out there. But then at the end of the day, when I thought about my years in architecture school, it was very clear that mission work was something big to my heart. And I was like, what if I actually go into mission work? And that really changed my life. It was very, very eye-opening. Not because the short-term missions are go, 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 go. We're going to do this for a week and we're going to end. But then I did it for a semester. It was like 4 months, and that looked like different every day. So I worked in the EMI, Engineering Missions International, and it really opened up my eyes to see how architecture could help. So my challenge to you is, wherever field you're in, whatever season that you're in, think of it as a gap. You might be fulfilled wherever you are, which would be amazing, and I'm so grateful that you are. But if you're not, if you're starting to question, am I making the impact that I thought I would be making at this time, then maybe you have to think about it a little bit more and say, what if I change this? What if I do this instead? Because especially for young adults, I'm speaking to a lot of young adults here, but I'm gonna get to also other people. But I think that's when you have more time. You have more time to explore, explore. And that, and to me, when I think, I'm very visual, obviously, I went to architecture school, but I think about when you're in the gap, if you don't explore, you're not gonna find that. You're not gonna find that maybe there is a stair somewhere that will get you to the top, or there is a river that is very beautiful, and you're gonna paint it, and that will bring you joy, or So I encourage you, explore, try things. This summer, this winter, try volunteering, try connect with people, ask. And another thing that I did actually, I do that a lot, is I would connect with the person that I think looks like the person I want to be in the next XY years or months. And then I'm like, how did you get there first? How do you really feel in that role or in that season? And that gives you a specific perspective of what you would be looking at. And then that gives you answers to, should I try, should I not? So explore, and don't be shy. Just go for it. Because one of the gaps that I was in is my expectation as someone who graduated with honors, someone who has tried different things, as like, oh, if somebody sees my resume, of course they're gonna hire me. But no, it was a pandemic. A lot of firms, a lot of people couldn't afford me, and there's nothing I could do about it. So I had to try the mission work, and honestly, I did not regret it. I met God in a lot of ways. I connected with people that I would not have connected. I went to a country that I probably would never have gone to. And it was amazing. So fast forward after that, I finished my internship. It was an internship. And then I got to a bigger firm. But before that, I was in a smaller firm. So I have been in like different size firms. And during that time, I'm like, I love architecture. It's actually really fun. Oh, architecture is really fun. So if you're here, you're thinking of architecture, definitely put in the comment, ask me questions, or meet somebody that is local, that is architecture, that does architecture. It's gonna open up your eyes. Yeah, so fast forward, during that time, the biggest gap that I had was relationships, because I went through that season of lack, a lot of lack, and support raising. Support raising was, oh my gosh, one of the biggest thing that I had to do. And it was a lot of challenges, but it was also very fulfilling, because at the end, it helped me realize who saw the potential in me and who was praying for me, and then I would send like newsletters, and getting answers from that was really amazing. But during that time, obviously I struggled with a lot with relationships, and one of the things that happened was I actually broke up with my boyfriend at the time, which is now my husband, and nobody understood. I also feel like I didn't understand really why, but now I understand, because the gap that I had in understanding relationships and what I could bring to those relationships was just so big. I was drowning. I felt like I was not giving. And he's an amazing person. I mean, if you've met my husband, you know I am the luckiest. But so during that time, I was praying for your husband, and it was hard, because I really wanted to be in a relationship, because we had been in a relationship throughout college, but I had to being priority. I was prioritizing finding myself, and I think mission work really helped me find that person that I was hoping to be. Yeah, but going back to the gaps that was there, the gap of relationship was a big deal. I am going to talk to my one of my longest best friend on the podcast, so we're gonna share a little bit about that. So you might be in the gap. You might be finding that there is a gap in your relationships. It might be family. At that time, I wasn't talking to my sister as much. I was not talking to my brother, and that's a whole story for another time. But there are gaps. There were gaps, very much so. However, I chose to focus. I'm gonna focus at least on just one of them, and that was my career. And that at least helped me find fulfillment. So you might be in a season where there is a lot of changes, you might be finding that there is a lot of gaps, but maybe there's just one that you can focus on. And that one, and you can just give you a timeline and just give yourself, say like, okay, I'm going to give myself the rest of the year or 6 months in, and I'm going to hone in, because basically the gaps of relationship during that time, I didn't let it go. I didn't like, oh, I don't care about friends or I don't care about relationships, but I was like, Lord, I am in the school of relationships right now, so you better teach me. But then I was also focusing on what the Lord is calling me to do as a career, which was very fulfilling at that time. So I encourage you to focus on one thing and don't put too much on the back burner. However, also pray about it. Give it to somebody. Just maybe someday talk about it. Like, don't forget that those gaps also are there, because if you forget them, guess what? They might be bigger. You might be darker in those spaces. Yeah. So yeah, the relationship piece at that time, I just decided I'm going to give it to God, and I am going to focus on the mission work, and that helped me go into the mission work. I felt fulfilled at that time. The Lord showed me a lot of things about myself, and then I went to that job that I got after the mission work, and then I felt settled in the career piece at least. And then I would work on relationships. And I remember during that time, I had a roommate situation, and then I remember deciding, like, you know what, I'm not going to have a roommate until it's my husband. And that's what I did. As like, I am going to invest in relationships. I talked to my friends for that I haven't spoken to years. I remember that with this one time I felt so tired and everything, and I called one friend that lived in Atlanta, and I was like, I'm just so tired, blah blah. And she's like, come over. And I booked the flight for the next weekend, and I went there and spent 4 days with her, and it was amazing. It was rejuvenating, and I was learning so much about myself. Those are the times that we had conversations and we talked about stuff, and we, like, that one piece of my life was settled. I had a job that I enjoyed, and I knew I was fulfilled in that piece. And then I focused on relationships, and guess what? During that year, that's when I ended up reconnecting with my now husband, because I got to a point where I really felt now I can bring something to the table if I get a husband, a boyfriend and fiance. Where I reconnected with my now husband, and then next thing we know, we're planning 3 weddings because we had to have just weddings different places because we lived a lot of places. And then during that time, I actually had to go back to school. I went back to school for a project management degree. And it was an amazing time because of that piece of career that was very set, and the relationships that was very set. It was easier for me to lean on my friends, to ask for help on my friends, to invite people in that sphere of I am struggling with long distance, because at that time he was still back in Rwanda. When I would struggle, and even when I remember when I reconnected with him, I talked to a friend and I was like, I get this guy out of my head. And then she said, well, why don't you talk to him and figure out what's going on? And I'm like, that's true. I could just talk to him because he's safe and we could be even just friends. But of course, we didn't. That night was the night that I was like, okay, I think you're the one that I've been praying for. And that was amazing. But just to show you and to give you hope that if you focus on just one gap and fulfill that, and trust me, one of the biggest things that the lie that I was telling myself during that time is I'm losing time. Like, oh my gosh, like my years are going. I spent 4 years being 4 years being single, but every year that was passing was like, oh my goodness, what am I gonna do? But now I look back and I'm like, no, the years that were passing, I was learning one more thing about myself. I was investing in one more thing that now I look back and I'm like, I'm so glad I did that. So no, there's no time, especially when you are in purpose, when you are being fulfilled. So don't believe that lie. Don't really believe that lie. Because after that, I spent 4 years being single, and when I reconnected with my husband, a couple months later I was engaged. A couple months later we were married, and I'm the happiest I've ever been. And the Lord just continued to give me blessings. We had known each other for 10 years before we got married. And during that 10 years, if anybody would have told me that I would be this guy's exact wife, I'll be like, yeah, it's too good to be true. But I'm here now. So it's possible for you. It's absolutely possible for you. And then on the friendship side, yes, you saw in my intro, I talk about my best friend who is the one who pressed record. We've been friends for 15 plus years, and it's not something that I did. It's that I gave myself space when I was in that transition, and there's trust that the right people are there waiting for me. So invest in that one gap that you are feeling right now. And if you don't know what that gap is, let's keep having those conversations and we will figure it out together, Because trust me, I am still finding the gaps that I need investing time, investing resources, but I only can get one gap at a time. So that's why it's very important that we know that we live in gaps every single day. We live in places to make those decisions every day. Yeah. And then another thing that I wanted to share is how the fulfillment, how do you know what kind of fulfillment, especially when things changes. So like I've mentioned, I got married, and then a month into marriage, we found out we were pregnant. And it's amazing, that was another blessing from the Lord. But we were hoping to first learn each other and grow into this relationship. And he had just immigrated to the US, so he had a lot of things to learn. But then I had to rethink what fulfillment looks like now that I am a wife, now that I am pregnant, that I was pregnant at the time. And what that looks like was that communication. Finding those mothers that it happened to. Luckily, I have maid of honors that are I have 3 maid of honors for the 3 weddings. One of my maid of honor is my best friend Agap, that she's not married yet, but she's someone who is going to say it how it is and will challenge you. Why are you not thinking about that? Why are this looking desperate while you should be joyful or be excited? Like when I told her I'm pregnant, she was like, another surprise, like you're full of surprises. But she said it in such a fun way, a like encouraging way, and then she would ask me questions that made me feel like I think I can figure it out. So what that looks like is maybe when you feel like you're getting into that gap, because the gap that I was getting myself into is how am I gonna provide for this child? How am I going to, you know, do this motherhood thing before I even figure out what wife looks like? But then I was surrounded with, my one of my middle ones, Agap. The other one, she lives in Texas, but she's so resourceful. She has 2 children now, and she's such a go-getter. She's a career-oriented woman. She knows what's up, and she's available. So she was actually, I think, the first person who knew I was pregnant. And then I told my mom, of course, because I was like, what am I gonna do? But she the same thing. She was very positive. She was like, the first child is amazing. You're gonna love your husband more. And oh my gosh, that's so true though. When you get pregnant with the child of the love of your life, I cannot tell you how much I have fell in love with this man. Anyways, that's that's a whole other topic. But yeah, so surrounding yourself with those people that, even though you're feeling like you're in that gap, they could help you find those bridges. And what that looked like was, I was listening to my other maid of honor is in Rwanda, and she is also very go-getter. She has a business. She has 2 businesses, I believe. Working on so many things. She has 3 sons, and she lives in a different economy. But she was so, oh my gosh, so encouraging. But just to show you that if you start working on the gaps that might be in your life right now, then even the gaps that you're gonna find yourself in later, they're gonna be easier to realize and to find resources that are needed for you to get the help that you need. So please, 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 please don't stay in that gap, and have a conversation with one. I assure you, there is one person, 2 people that are so hoping to listen to you when you are feeling like you might be drowning. And trust me, I am there with you, especially now as a new mom. I'm still realizing, like, oh my gosh, what am I gonna do? And then I have 1, 2, 3 people that I can say, you know what, let me just try this one. And usually there is answers to that. And then another thing is, so I was in school, I was planning 3 weddings, and then I got pregnant after that. And I graduated my degree while pregnant with my daughter. And oh gosh, it was so hard. People ask me all the time, how did you do that? Like, are you even insane? But the truth is, I had so much support. My husband was there when I had my first trimester. I couldn't do nothing. I was so sick and everything, but he would come home and say, I got you, babe, like, just rest. And he would just pray over me, and he did that so lovingly. And then my friend, for example, when I told my Denver parents that I was pregnant, the first thing that they're like, we're throwing a baby shower for you. And I'm like, oh, I didn't even think I was gonna do a baby shower because we couldn't afford it, to be totally honest. But they're like, we don't even care. We love your family. We are going to love your daughter. We already love her, so we're gonna, do it. And then when I told Agap about the baby shower, she's like, I'm coming. And few friends were able to come too. The people that were not coming, they sent gifts. It was such an amazing time where I kept finding, like, oh my goodness, this girl that I'm pregnant with, she's already loved. How much more am I loved after I've met all these people, after I've done all of these things? So it goes back to you. How much more, if an unborn child can be this loved, that loved and supported and provided for, how much more can you be even even while you're feeling like you're in the gap. So please, please, please don't stay in the gap. Yeah, this fulfillment is in Jesus alone. So I invite you to think about what is true fulfillment in your life. And it might be looking different in every season. I gave you all the examples that it was in my own life, and your life is different, but the truth is the same. The truth is the same. Please share your comments, your ideas, but don't stay in the gap. Don't stay in that gap, because there is gonna be other gaps that we're gonna have to work through. So I just want to. I hope this was very encouraging to you. It's very uplifting and hopeful, because at the end of the day, we live in the gap, but we are not meant to stay in there. That's why we're here to give you permission to think about that. We're here to give you space to ask those hard questions, hard decisions to make. But what we're doing is to take action. So thank you so much for tuning in this episode. I will see you in the next episode. This is The Gap We Live In. I am your host, Gwendolyn Albright, and I'll see you next time. God bless you.